Alright, we're going to take a look at finding the derivative of square root of x times sine of x. Now, to make this a little bit easier, before we do any calculus, we're going to rewrite the sine of x as having x to the 1/2 power. And the reason here is it's going to allow us to use the power rule when we get ready to take the derivative. Now remember, we haven't done any calculus up to this point. All we've done is used a little algebra to rewrite the expression to hopefully make the calculus part a little easier. Now, because we see a multiplication of two different functions, we're going to use the product rule. Now remember, the product rule says to take the derivative by taking the derivative of the first plus times leaving the second one alone, plus then leaving the first one alone and multiplying by the derivative of the second. Now the key rule here is just to remember that you're never multiplying two derivatives together or two functions that are left alone. You're always doing a combination. And order is not important here because we know that addition and multiplication are commutative. So let's leave the first one alone and take the derivative of the second. So the derivative of sine, that's cosine. Then a plus. Now we'll leave the second one alone and multiply by the derivative of the first one. So we'll use our power rule here, bring our exponent in front, and decrease that power by 1. Now be real careful here on this last expression. Notice that that 1/2 x to the negative 1/2 is not actually being multiplied by the x. It's being multiplied times the sine of x. So it actually would go in front times the whole expression. Now, the part that is difficult here is probably the cleanup. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a second and use some algebra to clean up our expression. I'm going to still keep this x to the 1/2 instead of going back to the square root of x. I'm just going to leave it alone. But watch what happens over here in this second term. Notice this 1/2. I'm going to put the 2 on the bottom. And this x to the negative 1/2, it's coming to the bottom as well to make it a positive exponent. So this becomes sine of x over 2x to the 1/2. Now we could make a common denominator. And when we make a common denominator, we want to first look at what both denominators have. Now the first expression here doesn't have a denominator, so we're going to have to give it one. The second one does have a denominator, so we'll use that as our common denominator. So what I want is over here, I want this also to have a 2x to the 1/2. Now the only way we can put a 2x to the 1/2 down there is if we multiply the top by a 2x to the 1/2. Now when we simplify, 2x to the 1/2 times x to the 1/2 would give me 2x cosine of x plus, notice this one already has the common denominator so we can leave it, and my denominator is 2x to the 1/2. So this is a good example of the product rule and then using some algebra to simplify by making a common denominator.